Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel, and we are back on our tutorial on how to do basic airliner repaints. Today we'll be discussing on how to line up the template correctly for easier repainting. This will be the second video of a series that tackles the activity of doing basic airliner liveries. If you may have missed my first video discussing about the repainting programs and basics of Inkscape, I highly recommend watching that first so you'll have a proper understanding of the tools that I'll be using for this video. You can check it out by clicking on the cards or checking the description below. So there might be some questions lurking around about this topic. Something like, what is lining up the template? Why should I line up the template when I can just directly work on the pieces and where they are? Is it really important to line up the template? Can I do a repaint without lining it up? Those are valid questions, and I once asked that to myself at one point. I'll try to answer them at the best of my ability. Basically, aligning the template is an essential activity when repainting, as it will determine the overall accuracy and difficulty of delivery. It gives you a proper glimpse of how each segment of delivery will connect to each other once printed and test built in real life. It is pretty much similar to this. This is my repaint for the Korean Air Boeing 747. You can see how the livery connects to each other and how it goes throughout the pieces. However, you can repaint a livery without lining it up in under two occasions. One, either the livery is extremely easy and some designs do not go through between a lot of pieces. A possible example of this is WestJet's livery for their fleet. And for the second occasion, you really like to challenge yourself. In this video, we will focus on the liveries that have overlapping designs throughout the pieces. Alright, now that I have answered some questions, we can now proceed with lining up the fuselage. Okay, we are back at Inkscape. We can now import the template here and ungroup it. Here, I'll be using Citycraft's Boeing 737-800 template as our working material. Before we start, we need some clarifications. The file where you will be lining up the fuselage should be dedicated to the activity of lining up only, and it is a good practice to delete other parts that are not needed. This may include the landing gear, formers, and some antennas. You will do the entire repaint in this specific file, and you will constantly import the lined up parts to the correct templates when you are done repainting. So like I said, it is best to delete non-necessary parts in order to retain the optimization of the template. Alright, now that that is said, we can now begin. Okay, so before we start working on the fuselage, just like what I said earlier, it is best to delete non-necessary parts. Parts which include the landing gear, also be aware of some pieces where the livery might show up. This one, this white part, a livery might possibly appear there, so be aware of that. But I'll be deleting this one. I will add them back when I am working now on the template. Alright, now that some unnecessary parts are deleted, we can now begin working on the fuselage. So there is a 90% probability that the template that you're working on has a livery on it. If you manage to get your hands on a template that does not have any livery on it, or a blank template, you should get that, as it is much more convenient to do a repaint. But for now, let us work on a template that already has a livery on it. So we should first delete some parts of the livery, as this will no longer be important when it comes to repainting or for the desired livery that you want. So this is an easy way, or this is an easy process specifically for the livery that we have here. Alright, so we have now cleared up the livery that was previously present there. So we can now begin lining up the fuselage. The best place to begin lining up the fuselage should be the parts that have a straight edge on them. I'm referring to these parts right here, you can see how straight the edges is, or the edges are. It is not like this one where it has a curved one. We will be working on that later on. So for now, our priority should be the one that has a straight edge on them. So let us just select these parts right here. We can place them right above here. And there we go. Let us delete that one. The windows are a great basis for lining up, as they are usually placed on the side of the fuselage. The more it is lined up on the side of the fuselage, the more accurate the repaint might become when you are finally test building the repaint. So we should be basing on the windows right here. You can also base on the fuselage lines that we have here. Many modern templates that we have now have this detail in them, and you can also use these lines to your advantage as a convenient mean for lining up. We can draw a line here as a guide for lining up the windows. Okay, so you can press the control button and this will start creating a straight line. The longer the line, the better. Just like here, and there we go. Alright, so we can begin lining it up. So let us select these pieces right here and let us move it around, basing on the windows and the lines of the fuselage. Alright, let's move that above. Let us also make that a bit less opaque so we can see the objects below it. Okay. Moving on to the next part. You may see some errors where it won't line up in some pieces. The other side is not that important, as this will be the focus. Of the repaint. So let us just move it around. I found a bit of an error here, so let's drag that here. Okay, now that the straight parts are aligned, you can now see how the fuselage connects to each other. I hope this may give you an idea on how convenient this might appear when you are now repainting. Okay, so let's grab the other parts that have a window on them. There we go. So this one, you can see how it is a bit of in a specific angle. So let's just turn that around. We are still basing on the windows. You can see that they are both aligned here, here, and so on. This one is already in a good angle, so let's just turn it a bit, but it is already in a good angle. Alright, now that some parts that have windows are now connected, we can now begin working on the parts that does not have any windows on them, or the ones that have a curved edge. So let us just grab them. If the pieces are too close to each other, you might accidentally select some parts here. You can either drag them, or you can deselect them like this. Or you get the point. Or just like what I do, you can just select it there. You can see that it is overlapping. I press copy and then I paste them. Just like that. And then you delete the parts that is not part or not included in that piece. So this one does not have any windows on them. So we will be basing on the lines that we have here. Alright. So these lines here will connect to this one. So we should start turning that around. You can also draw some lines on the fuselage as your guide when it comes to that. So for every repaint, there are a lot of techniques that you can use, and these techniques vary from repainter to repainter. So what I'm using here might not be used by other repainters. So when it comes to repainting, you need to constantly have plans on how you will overcome the problem. Alright, so you see that this one does not actually connect to this one. So what we should do is we will base on other close lines. This one, you can see it connects to this one. It does not have to connect on this one. It is normal for the lines to start curving, as we all know that the fuselage eventually curves on some parts. So that is quite normal, so don't panic about it. You can see now that is aligned. So it is always a manual process and a bit of a labor-intensive activity. So just always be focused on what you're doing, as failing to or having an error in lining up might actually mess up the repainting process. Just like what I said earlier, every repaint has their own problems or techniques that you can use during the process. So it all depends on how creative you are on solving the issue. You can see here, I'll be lining that up. Just like what I said earlier, the closer the parts are, or the closer the details are on the windows, the more accurate it may be when you are now repainting. Okay, so a prominent sign that your repainting procedures are doing well is you can see that this line here, or this part here, starts to curve downward. This is perfectly normal, as just like what I said earlier, this side here will be our focus. This one at the top will not be any significant, as most liveries of today have a pretty asymmetrical or symmetrical design. So there may be some pieces that is not actually part or should not be here, just like this one here, where it will be above the fuselage. So you can base on the lines here, you can base on the shape of the curves as a tool. Always take note of the parts where it will curve down. This one is definitely connected when it comes to the actual Boeing 737, where this one will start curving inwards. So this one, you can see that it no longer have a line here. So we should start basing on the other lines. This one right here. Again, take note of the curvature of the pieces if it connects well. Make sure that the pieces right here are not overlapping with other pieces. You can also see that it starts to curve downwards. Again, that is completely normal. If you manage to get an idea of how the pieces connect to each other based on the shape, you won't have to draw a line on them. The closer you are to the nose, the more apparent the shape of the pieces are. So this will be much more easier to work with. There are some templates that does not have any of these lines. So you should always take note of any visual cues that you can use for lining up. This one here does not have any detail on them or on this specific face or piece. So just like what I said, we need to start basing on the shape of the pieces. You can see this prominent line here, which starts to curve at this part, also at this one. So take note of that, as this is also a visual cue for lining up. Okay, there we go. We are done with the front part of the template. Let us grab this one. We can now also begin on deleting some parts. Let us now move on to the tail part of the plane. So for some templates, there might be some holes right here where the stabilizer will be placed. So always take note on the edges of the pieces. Take note of the livery that you are planning to work on. If there are some pieces where the livery will not show up. So for the planned livery that I am trying to make, this will not show on this part right here. So again, take note of the parts where the livery will not show. So if it will not show in that piece, you won't have to line up that pieces. There are some liveries where the design in the tail will start to streak down from here and then will go to the fuselage. So for that, in order to line up the tail to the fuselage, we'll make a different copy, as this is a different alignment. So our basis for this one will not be the lines here, except instead this will be our basis. So we all know this is where the tail will be placed. So this will be, the line here will be our basis. Okay, there we go. So this will be the basis. So let's move on to the next pieces. Again, if the pieces are too close to each other, what you can do is you can copy that piece and then you'll delete the parts that was accidentally copied. Okay, we are done lining up the tail. So let us delete some lines. And now we can copy and paste the tail right here. So we only need one side. Right, so what you will do is that you need to align the edges right here. And there we go. You can see that now you can now work on the tail. So it has a sort of a transparency issue right here. So we can just fill this one or get rid or try to hide these parts right here. You can draw a square right here and change the color to white. And it is now properly lined up. So take note that the part right here, this tail will bulge when you are applying it to the template. It is already self-explanatory. So when you are doing a livery, for example, the AirAsia livery, where it is different on each side, always take note of the bulge right here. This part will not be visible. So yeah, always take note of that. So for the engine, it is also the same case. I will not be doing that. I will be doing that off camera. Alright, for the last part that we have to deal with, sorry about that, will be the belly of the aircraft. This part right here is the most difficult to deal with. As for now, there is no one method of connecting this one to this part. I am quite lucky that for this fuselage right here, it has a cap around it. But there are some templates that it is a full cylinder. So for many repainters, they usually just do this part of the belly in a sort of a trial and error method. So in this part, this will be the aligning part. This segment here where the wings will be placed. This will be our reference. So far we cannot add this belly right here to the actual fuselage. So we'll be doing the template right here. Again, basing from the shape of the pieces, where it is obvious that it will connect to this one, so we'll be basing that this will connect to this. And there we go. We now have fully aligned the fuselage of the aircraft. I'll be doing the engine off camera, as this is pretty much the same procedure as this one. Again, if the livery does not cover the engine, then you won't have to align this one. You can just ignore that. But if the livery ever crosses the pieces in the engine, then you'd have to line it up. So for now, let us just erase that as we are now done. Let's also erase this. We can just copy and paste that again. And there we go. This is now our aligned template. We will now be doing the entire repaint in this specific file right here that we have. And once we are done with the repainting or the adding of the colors to the pieces, we will be importing this specific file to all the templates, to the original templates or the pages that has not been moved around. The next video will be focusing now on the actual repainting. We will be doing a specific livery. So yeah, let us just align these pieces properly. And there we go. So now you may have an idea on how important lining up is, because you can now see how the pieces connect to each other. This is massively convenient for repainting, as you can now be pretty much certain on how the pieces will interact with each other. You can see how it connects to here and so on. You will have to rotate the pieces in some situation when there are some segments of the livery that have to overlap. For example, there may be some gaps around here or some livery designs above here and there's a gap, so you'd have to focus on that. So again, there are some instances where you'd have to rotate the pieces. So yeah, that will be all for our video about the lining up of the fuselage for convenient repainting. So I hope this video was pretty, I guess, a bit helpful for some, even though I mumbled a bit throughout the video. But yeah, I hope that this video was informative enough to give a solid idea for some. So if you are able to line up the fuselage correctly, you may already begin doing some liveries. So yeah, thank you for watching this video today. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it leaves a massive support for me, and I highly appreciate it. So again, thank you, and I'll see you again in the next video.